Hey guys, welcome to another hang. Today I'm gonna be addressing some very important questions that I get on Instagram. I am making this a series. This is gonna be called the Instagram Q&A. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, stop this video and do that right now, because every few weeks I go up there and I put up a post where people can ask me questions, and that allows you to directly ask me a question and I will address them on YouTube here. I will actually go through all the questions in depth and talk about them. I just realized that I can't fit all the answers within a minute, so this is the way we're gonna do it. So join me in this first session of Instagram Q&A, and here we go. Glempoli asks me, do you have exercises to work on 8th note upbeat accents? I want to swing, not to speed. I'm guessing what he's talking about are 8th note exercises that gives you the swing sound, but not the speed. The very important aspect of swing is to get that swing grid going on. So it goes something like... I tell people to think of it as your shuffle blues. I know a lot of jazz musicians watching this are probably going to hate the fact that I'm comparing a swing feel to a shuffle blues, but it really does work if you start thinking of it, and it will get you in the momentum of feeling the sound of swing, you know? So if I play a scale, C major scale, in that grid, it does sound a little too exercisey, it does sound not that musical, but if you start making phrases out of them, you start getting a really nice swing sound. And I think this is a good grid and a good place to begin that. The other thing that you can do are accents. And by accents, I mean accenting a certain partial of an 8th note. For example, if I'm accenting the and, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and let's take C, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... I'm just trying to get some of the upbeats, not always all, but a few of the upbeats to accent more than the others. Now you take that, you add that with the grid and add some triplets with it. Have fun trying that. The next question by Sound Motif is, what chord substitutions do you commonly use? Now, let's talk about that a little bit. I use different chord substitutions every time I play. Definitely there are certain things that I do like to do quite a bit. In most of my chord substitutions, I think of them on the dominant chord. Sometimes I even think of a minor chord as a dominant chord, but we can get into that a little later. Sometimes I just think of a G7 chord as an A flat major chord, you know? That's a great sound. So 2, 5, 1 can be 2, 5, 1, or 2 flat 2 major, right? That's a great sound. 1, or 2 flat 6 major, 1. You know, there are many ways. So one thing that you can think of is building a major 7 chord from the flat 6 degree, the flat 3 degree, and the flat 2 degree. Now, they don't always have to be a major 7 chord. They can also be a dominant 7 chord. A flat 13, really cool sound. E flat 13, D flat 13, C. All of them are great substitutions for a 5 chord. Another thing that I like to do is build triads on top of dominant chords. If I have a G7 chord, from the 6th of that G7, which is an E, G, A, B, C, D, E, I like to play a triad from the 6th degree. So, and putting that triad on the G7 chord gives me this really lush dominant 13 flat 9 sound. I love that sound, and I like to use that 2, 5. You can hear that really tension. If you put a G into that mix also, 2, that's a really good sound, resolving to C major. So there are many substitutions you can use. I also, when I have a minor chord, let's say I have a D minor chord, I think of that as an A7 chord. You know, and I can think of many other variations of melodic minor that can come. I can build major 7 sharp 5 from the 3rd of that D minor, you know, giving me augmented sound. What I would suggest is to think of a different chord from the key or from melodic minor and put that on the existing chord, and then you will find this really harmonic palette that you can choose from, and whatever you like is what you can go for. So have a go at it and have fun with that. My next question from Bartek is, how do I practice getting longer lines in faster tempos? It's a great question. Longer lines in faster tempos are hard. And the reason for that is because we are conditioned to play smaller phrases. However, a lot of bebop players play very long phrases over changes. And the way that's going to happen is if you first learn tunes that have a lot of movement going on. Like, let's say you have a bebop tune, something like Donna Lee, you know. We all know the melody here. Now the chords go from A flat, F7, B flat, B flat minor, E flat 7, A flat, 2, 5 to D flat, D flat minor, A flat, F, B flat 7 again, B flat minor, E flat 7. Now that's just the A section, right? I can just choose to stay in the key of A flat, something like you know, and hit the changes that way. Or I can start making very long phrases that just go over in eighth notes, don't stop, using triplets and my swing feel. And what I'm trying to do is basically find a way to navigate through all the changes, but that's only going to happen if you know the arpeggios of these chords really well, right? So if I have A flat, so on and so on. This should be coming to you easily, not in a way that you're looking at the chord changes anymore, more like you know this by the back of your head. You know, you don't have to memorize this. You have to first memorize these chord progressions and know all the arpeggios. If we're playing A flat major 7, there are 5 places to play that arpeggio, you know, and that's something that you need to know. So now the practice, let's say you already know this, now you are basically combining all the arpeggios. A flat, F, B flat minor, A flat, D flat minor, A flat, F, B flat minor, E flat 7. So now you have longer lines. you can do stuff like this where you can come up with longer phrases and you add some more triplets, some more rhythmic aspects to it, you know. And so on and so on. So now you can come up with longer phrases if you know the basic fundamentals of the tune in depth. Does transcribing make things I don't understand make sense? Kenny Garrett, cool, but what the is going on? Good question. And yes, the answer is yes and no, to be honest, because you can transcribe something and play it back, but you wouldn't necessarily know what that is without using harmony in theory. So basically, theoretical aspects and knowledge of theory is basically going to put things in perspective for you. What does that mean? So when you see an A flat 7 chord and you hear Kenny Garrett play in the key of D major, which happens pretty often in jazz, believe it or not, you probably would just play the notes back and not know what they are. And you'll probably just be like, oh, these collection of notes sound pretty outside on that A flat chord, and I like that sound. That's cool, but you're not really getting in the depth of what it is. So what I would suggest to do is learn your keys, your key centers, your circle of fifths. Learn 2/5 progressions, 1/6-2/5, most common jazz standards. So in that way, you know what extensions are, what tensions are, how chords move. Now, you can also study some of the other greats like Wayne Shorter and John Coltrane. That will give you some bigger harmonic ideas and harmonic concepts and palettes that you can get into. So when you're getting into all that stuff and you're checking out what Kenny Garrett is doing, you can probably start relating to it very quickly. So transcribing things is important to understand the language, to understand the history, and to be able to kind of speak back what the language is, but you won't really make sense of it unless your theory isn't with you on that. How you master jazz standards. I know this is a short question, but the answer to this is very long. If I'm talking specifically about guitar here, I would learn every tune that I learn, even the bebop ones, in some form of a chord melody. I think that's very important, so that you know how far is the melody from the chord progression. You know, if I'm playing something like Autumn Leaves, this is my chord progression, you know, depending on what key you play it in. Let's say I played in the key of G major. I know where the chords lie and what the melody is, so I always learn these things as, you know, so I can do it in different places. So this is a very important aspect. And the other thing I would always say is to be able to improvise on a tune without really having anything else but a 2 and 4 on a metronome, or just a drum track that's playing with your brushes or something, you know. So you can improvise without a backing track. So, you know, that way you're improvising on the song and the form is going on in your head. You're kind of comping, you're improvising, you're playing the melody, you're doing all the things that you can do without anyone having to back you up. And that is how you will always remember a standard. Now, the more songs you learn, you will have to come back and visit them, and that's just what the game is. But there are certain tunes that you will just never forget because they follow such an iconic chord progression, like Autumn Leaves, All the Things You Are, and many others like that. Hey guys, I also wanted to say that this is the first part of the Instagram series, so there are still many questions that I need to answer here. Since I'm taking my time to answer all these questions, it's gonna take me longer to get through all of them. My first round is probably gonna be a few videos, and then I'm gonna start another one and another one, and hopefully I'm able to answer these questions in a way that it's actually helping and benefiting you, so you can keep asking these questions, and this will be a supplement to all the lessons that I am doing. You can hit me up and check out more fun stuff on my website at priteshwaliamusic.com. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and check out my music here, somewhere around here. Thank you, and see you in the next video.